Okay, good evening. Welcome to the 13th meeting of PACan. It is the 4th of February, and we are focused on some really specific things today, specifically jobs and our economy here in the area. And Doc has put together a really cool agenda for us, so we're looking forward to hearing more about it. So, first of all, there are some reminders, and I do want to let you know that if you are on our Facebook page, that I have pinned a calendar up at the top of all of our upcoming events, including the Peabody Creek cleanups, the PAARI meetings, the job meetings will be posted, and upcoming Oxford meetings. So if you have things to add to that calendar, just go ahead and let me know by private messaging me. Or you can let Lacey Holland know as well, and she has access to the calendar as well, and she will post things. But it's really great because I need to stay organized, and I constantly forget things, so the calendar is really, really helpful. So with that said, I really don't remember the dates, and so Chris, the next Peabody cleanup is?
Next Saturday, the 13th, 9 a.m., meeting at Olympic Power Sports.
Okay. Olympic Power Sports, just right on Peabody, and in between 2nd and 3rd, right?
Yeah.
In between 2nd and 3rd. Dress warm, wear good shoes, bring gloves, and you guys have garbage grabbers and plastic bags and all of the other necessities. So bring a friend. It's really important to keep that area cleaned up for the sake of our community, and kids go down there, and so that's really important. The other meeting that is coming up is the next PAARI meeting, and that is the police assistance, what is it called? Police assisted
addiction recovery rehabilitation initiative.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah.
And so that is coming up next week on the 11th, February 11th at 3:45, and the location? Vern Burton. And so that is anybody is welcome. So that one's coming up. And is there an Oxford meeting coming up?
Yes. Could you tell the camera what Oxford is?
Oxford is a clean and sober living home for individuals and women or men with children to transition back into society from prison, inpatient treatments, or people who just don't have a place to go that want to stay clean and sober and want to change their lives. I did it for the 19th at 5 p.m. at Sunrise Heights, Oxford House, which the address is 1117 East 2nd Street. So it's right over there. We had decided we were working on fundraising, but we had decided to split the committee up into 2 committees. So there's an activities, fundraising, and then there's also an education committee. And so I guess we'll talk a little more about that during our subcommittee meeting this next week, or next week.
And we are looking for some additional leaders.
Yes.
Okay. So we do, and just a little bit because Cloud Public Eye is here, the way that PACan is structured is that we have these overall general meetings, and then we also have what we call our subcommittees. And currently there are 3, maybe going on 4 subcommittees. The first one is Oxford. That is the one that kind of was the initial one. And Oxford, again, you just heard, is living for people that are in recovery. And the second subcommittee that we have is PAARI, and that is the Police Addiction Assistance Recovery Initiative. Got it? And in essence, what that is that people that are struggling with addiction can really go to the police station or whatever we figure out, because this is all in the beginning stages, turn themselves and their drugs and paraphernalia in and receive treatment without having to deal with the criminal side of things. And so really we're looking at how can we make this doable, and what do we need in order to make this work. So that is something that we're working on. And then the other thing that we are working on right now that you're going to hear a lot about tonight is the jobs that Doc has started, and he started that within the last month or so. So the other committee that we have talked about on and off that we are thinking about, we would be kind of joining with Revitalize Port Angeles on this project, and it would be looking at clean and sober activities for teenagers and making sure that there are things to do in this town that are exciting and enjoyable and somewhat, I don't know, I'm Norma. And activities that really kind of help kids stay on that clean and sober path. So that one is in the works, and I've been in communication with Leslie from Revitalize about how that might be. And the most important thing about that particular subcommittee is that it does need to be led by kids, and it needs to be their ideas and their kind of leadership, and with adults in the background guiding them and helping them figure things out. So that's a little bit about our subcommittees. So with that said, we have had our subcommittees do meet. We meet once a month as a general group, and then our subcommittees meet also on the side when they can and when it's most convenient for their members. So I know that Jobs met twice since our last committee, and PAARI has met once, and then Oxford, I know somebody got sick and things like that, but there is another meeting scheduled. So would Candace, again, you're going to meet again next
On the 19th.
On the 19th. Okay, so that is the upcoming meeting for Oxford. And then, Amy, do you want to give us a little rundown of PAARI and that, and I'm sure you and Brian can kind of tag team?
Sure. So what I understand about PAARI is it was started in Massachusetts by the police chief out there because they have a really big drug problem. Is this kind of what you wanted, that history?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
And so being a great guy and being kind of progressive in his thinking, he realized that you just can't arrest that problem away. And so he created this program where law enforcement is involved in getting people into treatment, which is really neat idea, really progressive. If things kind of continue the way that it sounds like it's going to continue, we'd be like the first state west of the Mississippi that would be a part of it. It's a really big deal, kind of up and coming. There's a lot of information on the internet about it. It's really about building relationships with people in the community, users in the community, and law enforcement, and also law enforcement and treatment providers within the community and likely well outside of this community.
So, and to add to that, we had the first meeting where we brought, it was actually in Christina's office, and it brought a lot of people who hadn't heard about the idea before, but all were part of the treatment or the law enforcement or the whatever provider community here. Everybody's doing something. So we all introduced ourselves to each other in terms of what our role might be. Terry and I were there to kind of frame out what we've learned about it. And as you said, it's a really brand new concept. And I think it's as much about taking, what you already have and connecting it together so it works. I mean, once a week, I probably encounter somebody in my job, and I'm not a patrol officer, who I might be really interested in handing off to someone if they're willing to do it. So having that resource right there that I'm going to be, like, I'm going to take you right now if you want to, or I'm going to bring somebody to you right now, and we're going to get you going. That's kind of where we were at when you were there. We all got together and talked about how it would work. A lot of the stuff that Massachusetts Police Departments did, like they have the naloxone because public health doesn't have it. Well, we actually have the public health patrol officers. We carry it as well. We're raising awareness of that. An idea that we haven't, that's something we're not doing, but we'll probably do, is that every 2 weeks or so, sort of town hall open house that the police department hosts there, where they do like a meeting like this, and they invite people who are users, treatment people, whatever, and they talk about the program, they talk about the problem, and it's sort of a live, I guess, education seminar forum that they found also to be very helpful. That, you know, exposes people to who they might deal with, and so we're looking at, in terms of making it work here, a couple things that we don't have that the Arlington PD has. Is they've got funding to hire like a social worker, like actually have a go-to person with an academic background in doing that. That will be, like we talked about a grant that I found that isn't going to work for us because we don't qualify, and I haven't had time to shop the grant to somebody to hire that kind of person. But I think that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that we don't have. We don't have that person that would be, you know, able to maybe bridge all the pieces together. We don't have it yet, but and then some of the outreach people, the angels they call them, those are normally volunteers, people you have to vet out. As Terry said, we think we can provide the leadership and the structure to do that. Actually, we think we could provide the leadership and the structure for the program with everybody else who's got a professional background like these guys here helping us. So, very exciting program.
It is, yeah, and again, just like Amy said, it's, you know, Port Angeles is the first police department west of the Mississippi to formally align with this, and so it really, really is a big deal, and it's very, very progressive, and you know, I think it's fantastic that we're getting the right people in the room to talk about how we can make it work. So.
And by aligning ourselves, I got a phone call last week from a lady in Wisconsin that had been on the site and seen that we were aligned, and she had a bunch of questions, and she was about to meet with the police department. And she said they're really receptive. She's somewhere up in Wisconsin, and you know, she was like, I just saw you guys are doing it. I think you're doing it. Tell me everything you can tell me about it. Well, she actually knows more than me about some aspects because she's trying to create it. So now we've sort of created an exchange of information where we're going to stay in touch with each other.
That's great.
And that's just part of, well, you actually found the site, and we affiliated ourselves with it. So, yeah.
Good. I think it's good. You know, and we're just in the beginning stages of figuring out how that particular program can fit our community, because there are certain things that are going to work really well, and then there are adjustments we need to make, and just based on budgeting and our population and things like that. So it's all in the beginning stages. So, you got a question?
No, I have a statement.
I'm sorry?
I have a statement, is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Sure.
I mentioned this before, but this idea of offering treatment right away is actually an old concept rather than a new. That was the first drug czar in the nation. That was his thing. You get treatment, and so in those days, if you wanted treatment, you got it the next day. There were absolutely no wait lines in any major city in the U.S. So I've talked about that before, and that's outlined in a book called The Fix. So what I did is I lent that to Terry Gallagher, saying that it gives us a good background to show that's been done before and it works, and perhaps by using that historical perspective attached with what you want to do, maybe you could look at getting some pilot funding from the legislature, since this is the first on the West Coast. So I then tried to buy some extra copies of that book. There were none available, but I did find 6 online. So they're coming this week.
Okay.
So anybody who wants to borrow that book, I'd be happy to tell you.
So when you mentioned that book to me, I ended up buying it online, and
Oh, you
I've
did?
read, yeah. So I've read about half of it, and the
It's a little
book,
detailed.
it's very, I don't know, it's very eye-opening. And just the very beginning of the book, it shows kind of the life of an addict trying to get help. And the addict goes to this counselor, and the counselor calls probably, you know, a dozen places and tries to find a bed for them right away, and then is not able to, and so he takes this person home with him, and then the next day he tries again, and then the person is going through withdrawals, and it's so painful that the person leaves and goes and uses again. So the fact is that that gap that we have is not good. And so if somebody needs treatment or wants treatment, it can't be in a week. It needs to be immediately. So that was really eye-opening about that. So
Could you repeat the author? Michael Massing, M-A-S-S-I-N-G. And it's back to it's all in line with what some of the stuff that's coming out of the White House now. That we should have more treatment, blah, blah, blah. So fortunately, we're going back to where we used to be,
Fantastic.
which was a better place.
And so some of the things in the news that have come up in the last little while is that, Obama has said that, there's like $1 billion that he wants to spend on treatment. And then I wrote a letter that I just published today on our site, on PACan, that I wrote a letter to Kilmer, Representative Kilmer, and asked for his support. And so who knows if it was from the letter, probably not. But lately he has come out supporting rural communities, and I think for naloxone, is that right, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
So funding naloxone and the life-saving antidote, so. Yes.
I have one question about that. How do we, so I went to our state association meeting in Oxford, and they are recommending that we, somebody in our house, in every house, be certified to be able to do that just in case something was to happen. Is that something that we could do in this community to become certified to do that, or?
It's a 10-minute training.
Yes, that's what we do.
It's very simple, and we do it. It's not a problem for us to teach you. You would have to get your own naloxone, though, and that can be done through prescription.
Okay.
Most doctors are very willing to prescribe now, and we'd be happy to do a training with you.
Okay, awesome.
Ma'am, at the PABA meeting 3-4 weeks ago, the lady who does the syringe program,
That's me.
that's you, presented. So she showed the group how to do that.
Okay.
And so it's online. You can look at it at Public Eye.
That's
and
that
see her.
form of naloxone. Naloxone comes in 4 or 5 different forms.
Okay.
But I did demonstrate one brand
There you
and
go.
one modality of
Was that-
administration. So depending on what kind you get.
Okay, and then there were 2 job meetings. So do you want to summarize that now, or do you want to, you do it all at once? Okay, fantastic. Chris and I believe, Brian, you were at the CHIPS meeting on December 1st,
Correct.
and a handful of others. CHIP stands for Community Health Improvement Plan. And so this took place on December 1st. It was a follow-up from another CHIP meeting that happened a handful of years ago. And so, Chris, go ahead and summarize.
So this is something that Department of Health funded several years ago for all local public health departments to do. And so we did several public meetings and brought all kinds of stakeholders together and had them choose what they felt were the highest priorities of need in Clallam County. And 6 things were chosen. Those 6 things are access to care, so enough doctors to treat the people that are here, oral health, early learning, catching kids when they're very little, which is a huge prevention strategy, and that goes along with ACEs, substance abuse, chronic disease management, and mental health. So different community organizations handled those different pieces, and public health is the group that is moving into, has stand up to volunteer to do the substance abuse piece. So we did a heroin-only education forum on December 1st. And that was a way to kind of bring the issues together, bring people together that are interested in learning more about it. We broke into some subcommittees on that. We had a law enforcement group, we had a medication-assisted treatment group, we had a youth prevention group, and there was one more.
Law, medicine, youth.
There was one more, and I'm drawing a blank on it right now. But anyway, we have since been following up on those, so I see PAARI as kind of a beginning to bring that up, because we had all the law enforcement people in the community. We had lots of doctors talking about medication-assisted treatment, and medication-assisted treatment is very complicated to do. Each doctor is only allowed to be treating 30 people at a time using Suboxone, and Suboxone is a way to help a person withdraw a little bit more slowly from an opioid so that they don't go into the full body withdrawal, and it's easier to help them go through a treatment period and move into recovery from there instead of just going into a full horse kick on heroin. So it's a way to taper a person down. So we have put together a whole bunch of folks. Dr. Frank, our health officer, we are doing a training with DSHS on February 18th at Olympic Medical Center at 1 o'clock to encourage more doctors to get certified, because you have to have a certain certification to prescribe Suboxone. Then you're only allowed to have 30 patients at a time on Suboxone, which means we need lots and lots of doctors to take 30 patients apiece. So that's the next movement, and we're working on a study with the University of Washington, ADIA, Caleb Vandergreen's group, Susan Kingston's group, out of the UW, the drug policy group, and working on a study of that. And between our syringe exchange folks and our jail folks, we have a substance abuse counselor on site putting together that and working into medication-assisted treatment in conjunction with Knowles, which is our big clinic downtown. So we will be kicking that off in a few months. You'll be hearing a lot more about that. So the other things we're doing with substance abuse is a lot around prevention, and prevention is, for us, what we're doing now is the syringe exchange program, which we have been doing since 2000, cutting down on the amount of people, hopefully, and moving them into recovery by bringing in a substance abuse counselor that is on site and moving people in. That's something that's very new in the last couple of years. And also overdose prevention. We are giving out naloxone to every single person that uses heroin in this community that we can find to try and keep people alive. We cannot get them into recovery if they do not survive an overdose, and unfortunately, overdoses are happening. The other thing we've done is started January 1st, we made illicit drug overdoses, whether they are fatal or non-fatal, a mandatorily reported condition in Clallam County, like we would do with any communicable disease. So we are getting reports the second that person goes into the hospital, or if the person dies, and the coroner gives us the report, so we can investigate that, we can get blood samples, we can get samples of the drug, we can interview folks, we can teach them about naloxone, we can get them into recovery programs and move them along that spectrum. So it's quite a lot that's happening, and we're just barely getting started. And we will be releasing a lot more information about that as we go. Unfortunately, we have had multiple overdoses in January, and we will be doing a press release and releasing some numbers. So there's a lot going on.
Good summary. Thanks. There is a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's actually really, really exciting. So with that said, Doc?
Okay. We've met a couple of times, but the most important message that I can give you right now is that if we went on the number of likes the job issue got on all the social pages, there would be somewhere between 100 and 150 people here tonight. And there aren't. So if you're interested in the job issue, the very first thing you need to do is ask people you know if they checked off like, and then start pushing them. Okay? Because this is, and I understand why they're not here. Okay, look, jobs isn't some simple problem where you do X and it's done. This is very complicated stuff, and it's daunting. But we've got to do this, and we've got to do it as a community, because it's not going to be the job seeker alone who does it. It's not going to be the employer alone who does it. It's not going to be the county alone who does it. It's going to be all of us. And so it's going to take a lot of volunteers and a lot of oomph to change the atmosphere in our town. Okay, so in the preliminary meetings that we've had, you have all these notes here, except you have them in more detail there, and I'll cover the details. Here, I'm just going to cover the challenges we have as a county in jobs. Right now, I went on WorkSource today, and there are a lot of open jobs. There's 436 of them that I counted, but 70 of those jobs appear to be family wage jobs. They were broken down roughly 30 in the trades, 40 in certified healthcare jobs, and about 10 in trucking. There are all sorts of other kinds of jobs as well. There are a lot of temporary and seasonal jobs for cooks in the coming summer, and those kinds of things. Here's the problem. If local employers can't fill these jobs, new employers aren't coming to town. Because they take one look at that and they say, I'm not going to go to a place where we don't have an educated, ready to work workforce. So it's up to us to make these jobs get filled. It's in our interest to do this. Now let's flip the problem around. Many in Clallam residents want to get a better job, but they are currently working 2 or 3 jobs, minimum wage or close to it, training programs are not available locally. They're too expensive. They can't take the time off. They can't afford the child care that would incur doing it. This is, when people talk in political campaigns, talk about the working poor, this is it. That's what it looks like. So as a county, we've got to come up with solutions to this. And the solutions aren't necessarily, buckets of money from somebody out there. It's simple stuff. It's getting together a group of businesses who all together need 10 electricians and doing electrical and so on and doing the same thing, getting the unions together to do a union trades program. A lot of our emphasis in this town should be trade work, because that's where the jobs are, and that's who lives here right now. Okay, let's see. All right, the third challenge is we have a lot of unique groups there. Some of their needs are being met, sometimes they're not. We have teens and vets and seniors and rehabilitation, which is a grouping of both people in recovery and prisoners on parole. All of these people, it's in our interest to get them working. The teens, they're coming out of the high school unprepared. The high school is doing what they know how to do. As a county, we have to find the solutions. I don't know whether it's a dad's boot camp or some kind of what were we thinking of? Okay, so they're just not ready at graduation. The solution we came up with wasn't here.
Was it the soft skill stuff?
Some of it's soft skill stuff, and I'll get to that. But that's a different thing. It's true. We are not teaching basic soft skills. The things people are going into work. They don't know how to write a resume. They don't know how to show up on time. They don't know what clothes to wear. They can't or won't take direction. They won't stop smoking dope, and it just goes on. And I know of several instances where people who could be earning much more in their lives aren't, because there's a drug test involved between here and there. And we have to change our atmosphere as a town on this. Okay? Yeah, it's true. Grass is legal, but so is booze. You don't go to work with booze. You don't go to work with grass. Simple. Now, getting that across, changing the atmosphere in our town, that's something that has to do with, that's where we need all the volunteers in. That's where we need to create so much noise, and people are constantly asking each other, so how's work going? What are you doing? How do you climb up the chain? These things aren't happening around here. They're sort of people trudging along, and we need to stop trudging and start asking each other, how's it going? And really being interested in the answers. We have to develop our own cloud training resources. This is OJT from companies and unions. It's paid internships. It's tie-ins with community colleges, both Peninsula and South Seattle, who has a huge marine trades OJT program. But it's also new economy initiatives like hacker schools, which a hacker school, for those of you who don't know, it's not about making somebody who can hack a computer, though that's where it started. It's about courses on demand. It's sometimes just online, sometimes in person, but you're not out there trying to get a particular degree. You're taking the set of courses that you need to do X. And we need to have a way to assemble those so that when enough people are together, we can deliver it. Or if it exists online, we need to get it into our county so that people can take it. We especially want those for the kinds of jobs that can go online. because this is one of the ways we can compete. We have terrible logistics issues out here. We don't have logistics issues if you're working on software. It's not an issue. It's, you're on the information superhighway. It's not an issue if you're a writer. It's not an issue with lots of these jobs that you can telecommute with. And one of the presentations tonight from the library is going to be one level of that kind of online education. We have to have more work on small business development. We have lots of budding entrepreneurs, but they're all sort of flailing around. And when they're flailing, it means they're not hiring. And we need to find better ways to help them. It turns out there's a fair amount of resources out there trying to do that. EDC and Washington State University has an office here, and other offices are all active in this, but somehow the energy isn't there, and the people aren't finding out about it, and maybe the advice they get isn't quite what they're needing. We need to figure out what it is they need, whether it is websites or logistics help, and we need to be able to think out of the box. For example, we have a lot of trucks out here that, for local companies that deadhead back to Tacoma. We should be filling those with Port Angeles goods, because they're going empty. The port and others are trying to bring industries here. We need to show up for this. This again is where we need more bodies. We need to be the boosters there. Any company who comes out here, as EDC will tell you, they take the tour and everybody loves the place. I mean, gee, how can you not love this place? You look up here, there's snow caps down here, there's water, and there's fishing and woods and everything. And then they go around and they start looking at the issues with our workforce, and they start looking at some of the issues with our schools, and they exit stage left. And we need to be down there as a booster group saying, yeah, we know we have these problems, but look, we're here to solve them. And find communities like that where you're other communities like that if you can, and it'll be very difficult for them to find. And we've been building that energy. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in this town with PACan and Revitalize and Our Town and all the various committees. We need to build this energy up until we basically take over the place. And then the companies coming in will get a different feel. They still see the problems, but they know that we're working toward the solutions. Tourism, we haven't scratched the surface. Not even close. And we have to find a way to bring them out of the woods. It's great that they come up here and they go straight up Ray Street and they have fun in the woods, but we need them downtown. And we need to think about a downtown development center. And this has been done in other places. The model I always show is Santa Monica Mall. The Santa Monica Promenade, when I lived in Santa Monica, was a place where you could die from a knife attack. And in 5 years, it changed to a place where all the people who happen to own the property there were really glad they did. Because right now, you can't touch it. You can't buy square footage there. Finding our schools. Ultimately, we have to deal with this. And it's not directly related to the Jobs Committee, but we all have to keep in the back of our mind that if we don't start funding our schools and bring up our level of education, new employers aren't going to come. They're going to say, I want my kids to go to a school where they have a chance to get into Stanford. And that can be done here, but you're climbing a much harder path to do it, whatever. I don't know. Okay, so and then I also talk a little bit about, these are the industries that we're trying to service. Marine industries, carbon fiber manufacturing and recycle, health industries, laboratory trades, software development, telecommuting trades, and local entrepreneurs. Those are the ones we know of so far. So we're looking for volunteers. Now tonight we have presentations from the library and WorkSource. Did vocational rehab show up? No. Okay, so we will do just those two. And why don't we start with WorkSource? Sure.
Thanks for coming.
I'm going to say.
So folks, my name is Jeff Stoffer. I'm the supervisor for the WorkSource offices for Port Angeles and Port Hadlock. First thing I would like to say is, yeah, what he said. Very well informed, and you spread that out there very nicely. I've been asked to talk to you about the services that are available through the WorkSource office in Port Angeles. First thing I'd like to tell you is that all of our services have already been paid for. We're funded by taxpayer dollars, some of it's statewide, some of it's federal-wide, and so all of the services that we offer are free of charge. You were talking about the schools and not being prepared to enter the job market. So I'm going to go on a visual tour through my office and just kind of tell you what the individuals, what their primary responsibilities are. So right outside of my office is Brandino Gibson. He is a career pathways navigator. What he does is he works with businesses and the college and the high school to develop programs for people who are exiting those schools to have a way to get gainful employment. He's been working with some of the local banks to develop an internship program for some of the schools, business people that are graduating from that college, an internship program with one of the local banks, and for not just the tellers, but the technical, the accounting, the computer geek type stuff. That's kind of what Brandino does, is he works with businesses and networks through the chambers and local educators. He's working with the high schools right now to try and make a time available to where we can have counselors go in there and talk with high school students. We have an AmeriCorps volunteer, and that's his target audience, is high school kids, youth, people 24 and under, and helping them develop job searching skills. They work with people who have barriers to employment. Next to Brandino sits Patrice. Patrice is our business services specialist, and what she does is she works with the businesses in Port Angeles and Jefferson County. And the services that we offer businesses are, tell me what you're looking for, let me screen applicants for you, I'll set up some interview times for you, and then you can just come down and use one of our offices and interview those people who we've already screened for you. Now, the advantage of that is the business doesn't have 100 people knocking on their door saying, if you would just give me a chance, I know I can do the job. I've never done it before, and I don't really know what you do, but if you would talk to me, I could come to work for you and you'd be happy to have me. That's not the person that businesses are wanting to talk to right now. They want to talk to people who have the skill sets and that meet the job requirements. And so we offer businesses that resource. Come to us, let us know what you're looking for, and we'll find you X number of people, however many people you want to screen. For the seasonal jobs that you were talking about, Aramark Industries, they're going to have a hiring event with us over the course of a few months, and they'll hire probably, I think last year, 70, 80 people to work up in the parks and to do those seasonal kind of work. And we do all the screening for them, and we just say, you know what, you come in at 8:15, you come in at 8:40, and you come in at 9, and then they're going to send their HR person and just do the interviews. And we do that for the marine industries. We offer a room for training, businesses that want to do some off-site training. We have a room with about a dozen computers. 2 weeks ago, I had somebody that came in, and he was looking for people to teach how to become hazmat instructors. He wasn't teaching you about hazmat, but at the end of the 4 days, you were a certified instructor. And his target audience was veterans, Native Americans, and then people who had barriers to employment. And for 3 months I promoted that, and we sent out emails, all the tribal stuff. I sent emails to DSHS, I sent emails to the Pathways folks, probably 400 veterans, Any guesses on how many people came to take that free training for 4 days? I had somebody that flew in from Florida to teach that class. So that's a pretty good resource that didn't go tapped that day. I've had the police department, they've used our rooms for off-site training. The corrections department, we've made rooms available to them. So those are some of the things that we offer for businesses. Patrice gets to know the businesses, and every now and then I'll hear her on the phone having a desk side with somebody needing a little bit of resume help, and she'll say, time out, let me call somebody. And she'll call an employer and she'll say, I've got this person right here at my desk and they'd be just perfect for what you're looking for. Can I send them over? And she's putting a lot of folks to work just by making a phone call. So our business services person, their role is to get to know the businesses and see what businesses can use, and then we help them with that. At the front of our office, I have Vicki and Judith and Merle. They're our labor exchange people, and their primary role is reemployment. If you're a job seeker and you're looking for work and you want a little bit of coaching, you probably want to come and talk to one of those three people. They're experts in everything on employment. They're experts in building resumes, presenting yourself, and their sole focus is reemployment, helping you go back to work. Rad's over on this corner, and Rad, his specialty is working with Work First parents, TANF parents, helping them with their job search. That's what he does. And those are people who are referred to us from DSHS. If I go past Rad's cubicle, I'm going to end up at Stephanie and Jeff. And they're with the Pathways program. All they do is focus on youth. Youth who have some kind of a barrier to employment, and they can help them with on-the-job trainings. They help them with educational things. They go into the high schools and talk to the youth. Their focus is on that. If you come up this way from there, you'll run into Mike McAvoy. Mike McAvoy is about 100 years old. He knows everything there is to know about veterans and veterans resources and veteran services. And his job title is a disabled veterans outreach personnel. He focuses on veterans who have a barrier to employment, and then he helps get that barrier out of the way. If you go across the hallway from Mike, you'll run into Leslie and Cher. And they work with adult populations, people who have maybe lost their job because it went away, and they need to get retraining to be able to go back to work. So they're the ones that can help with that retraining. They work an awful lot with the college to give people some training. I've watched them. They'll send somebody to become a welder or an electrician. You were talking about unions. So I was over in Tacoma in June, and there was somebody from the Steelworkers Union. This is what he said, and I was really quite impressed. There are 500,000 job openings as a steel worker in Washington State. On the I-5 corridor, there's $7 billion worth of work that hasn't even gotten started yet. That's a lot of work, and that's a lot of job openings. And so he said, you know, I can't find people to come to work for us because it's hard work. But there was a young lady there who was 23-ish, and she started out at UW, right out of high school, went to UW, got her first year under the way, and she found out, you know, college wasn't for her. And so she got out of college, didn't want to go into the student loan debts and all of those things. And so she was home, and somebody said, you should go check out the union. And so she became an apprentice. She's making $34 an hour, straight wage, as an apprentice. Time and a half for overtime. I think she's working 60 to 70 hours a week if she wants it. And she's still an apprentice. She's not a journeyman iron fitter yet. She's got her house bought, she's paid off all of her student loans, she's got a new car, and she's got a ton of money in the bank. And so I had someone from the electricians union come over to our office to have a hiring event and to talk to people about that. How many people do you think showed up? Less than 10. And so, folks, we offer some killer resources for job seekers. We have a workshop in skills and abilities. Skills and abilities is figuring out what your transferable skills are. We've been working, we have about 500 skills that are transferable to different kinds of occupations. But if I talk to a mechanic and I said, what do you do for a living? A mechanic will say, I turn wrenches. I bend wrenches all day long, and that's how I put bread on my table. But if you think about what a mechanic does, if your car's not working right and you call him on the phone, he can have a 5-minute conversation with you, and pretty quick, he knows what's wrong with the car before you even have to bring it in, right? Because he's learned to ask the right kind of questions, and he's developed the skill to find out what it is he needs to know before you ever get in there. You think that that's not a skill that would transfer to retail sales or 100 other different jobs, being able to ask those kind of questions? Or think about how organized you have to be a mechanic. You ever look inside a mechanic's toolbox or tried to borrow a tool from them? They're going to say, no, I don't have my tools, right? And then you try. I only need to borrow a 3/8 box end wrench, right? And then he's going to say, it's on the 4th drawer down, 3 in from the left-hand side. When you're done with it, you put it back where it belongs and wash it off with carburetor cleaner, because I don't want dirty tools in my toolbox. They know exactly where everything is. They can take an engine and tear it apart, all of 1,000 pieces everywhere, and they can put it all back together again. You think that being organized and having such attention to detail doesn't transfer to 100 different jobs? And so that's what that workshop, Skills and Abilities, is all about, is helping you figure out what those skills are that you might forget about or take them for granted. I've got a resume building class. You should all take it. If you're looking for work, you should all take it. But folks, there's rules and there's strategies for building resumes. And they don't know what they are at the college, and they don't know what they are at the high school. We talk to employers. We know what employers are looking for in a resume. My sister-in-law is a hiring manager for Boeing. You know how long she spends looking at a resume before she puts it away?
5, 6 seconds.
Not even. She'll give you to the count of 3. 1001, 1002, 1003. If you don't have her attention, you don't get it. Because she's got a stack of resumes to look at. And she's not looking at reasons to keep you, she's looking at reasons to get rid of you, because then she can go from here down to here. And then they can spend time looking at that. Folks, I'm an expert at getting people hired to the federal jobs. I know the federal recruiters. I know 5 of them are really good friends of mine in Bremerton. And I can send them a resume and they'll tell me if they like it or not. They'll tell me what jobs you should be applying for based on your skill sets. My sister-in-law at Boeing, she'll do the same thing for me. We're pretty good at helping people with resumes. We do a workshop just on applications, which sounds kind of silly. Why would you need help just to fill out an application? But an application's a test. And if you flunk the test, you don't move any further. The recruiter for Kitsap Bank told me, my job is to hire the very best. If I can find a mistake on your application, your cover letter, or your resume, I can throw you away. You're not good enough to come to work to my company. So here's a test question. It's on every single application we'll ever fill out. What date are you available to come to work? And what do you say? Now, immediately, as soon as possible, pretty much, right? Y'all missed that question, you all failed. Because I asked you for a date. And a date's a 2-digit month, a 2-digit day, and a 4-digit year. Anything else is the wrong answer. Who knew applications could be so hard, right? That's why you might want to come and take that workshop. I do a workshop Tuesday. If you have anybody that's struggling, figuring out where to go to look for work, I'm going to have a killer workshop on Tuesday. I'm the only one in Cloud County who can give it. It's called Job Search Strategies. In Job Search Strategies, I'll tell you how to format your whole week so that it's productive, so that you're getting a good return on your investment. Job Search Strategies talks about all of the different websites that are out there and how to get job applications, job leads funneled into you. How to use your personal network, how to develop one. Sir?
Do you want me to interrupt you for the question or wait until you're through?
That's all good, I'm just rambling anyway.
I've got a few little concerns with what you did say.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
I've been on both sides of this picture, big companies and small. This concept that, and I think you sort of said, kids should not go around and look for jobs, they should come to you. Right now I'm a commercial fisherman. And I'll tell you, any kid that wants a summer job, that if you'd go down to the docks and show up and ask for a job, if you had clean clothes on, and
Oh, that's an important one.
and showed some interest and a little bit of knowledge about those. After the fisherman recovered from shock that someone actually showed up to ask for a job, he'd have a job. And I think there's probably lots of lumber jobs where you could show up on site.
Lumber jobs are kind of hard to find right now.
Well, they could be, but teaching kids to not go out and identify places where they get jobs and actually, learn something about it and go there and ask for a job, I don't think it's necessarily good. And I hope that's not what you're doing.
So I'm agreeing with you almost 100%. Almost 100%. What we're talking about, though, is if I can get somebody to the high school to share the information that I'm just talking about, how much better prepared would they be to come down to your dock and talk to you?
Well, that would, as long as you aren't
And so what I would say is, if this person, whomever it may be, if they have a job search strategy that's getting them interviews and getting them talked to, then I would say keep doing it. Do what's working. But if your interview's not getting you, if your resume is not getting you an interview, if knocking on doors is not getting you face-to-face to an employer, if you've walked down onto the docks and you talk to everybody on those boats and that's not working for you, come talk to me, because something's not working right.
Okay, now the other thing is, you talked about how hard these local employers, how hard a job they're having getting trained people. Why don't you ask them to train their employees?
That's what Brandino's working on.
I started a gas company from scratch. We eventually ended up with about 3,000 employees. We just wanted a good, nice child who could write and read and do a little math, and was clean cut and looked like they'd show up working time. And we trained them. It's sort of a lost art anymore because people expect the government to do it for them. I really think there should be some pressure for them who can't fill their jobs to do the training themselves.
So if we look at the unemployment rate, is relatively low. And what economists would tell you is anytime you run into an unemployment rate that falls down around 6.5%, what that means is the pickings for the employer to find good qualified people, that's when they start having a hard time finding good qualified people. And we're about there. The folks that they have to choose from aren't necessarily the cream of the crop anymore. They're the folks that have already been looking for a while and they're a little bit harder to find. And as far as the on-the-job training, we work with employers a lot getting on-the-job training. Not internships, we're still working on that one, but we placed someone in the shipbuilding trade this week on OJT, where they're taking somebody and we're gonna help with their wages for a bit, and they'll have X amount of time to come up to speed, and then the plan is that they become a full-time employee. So those programs are out there, and we place several people, either youth and adults, who need the skills to be able to do that. Do every employer offer that? They don't. And then you can encourage them, and you can invite them, and you can ask them to provide that, but you can't twist their arm and make them.
Well, you train employees to have sort of some job skills. You can train employers to have job skills too, and maybe look at the other side of it.
You can, but you can't make them decide that they want to do that.
No, that's true. You can't make employees either. It doesn't seem to be like there's enough pressure on the other side to try to solve every problem.
I know that I won't use the word pressure, there's some pretty good incentives for employers to do that. There's tax breaks for doing that. There's financial breaks where funding takes care of part of their wage. Those are pretty good incentives, but still you got to find the people that are willing to do that. And that's a hunt. And Brandino does that. Patrice is working with that. There's several people in SWIM that are doing on-the-job trainings right now. There's people in Port Angeles that are doing on-the-job trainings. It's not a whole bunch, that I'm aware of, but they're out there. And then what we hope is that so with this internship program that they're trying to put together with the bank, the hope is that becomes successful, and then I can take it to a couple of other banks and say, look, this is what we did over here. Would you like to see if we can help you with that? And then the banks have it. And so now we have a model. And we can say the finance industry, this is the model that we're doing, and they're hiring people straight out of high school, people straight out of college. Let me take it over to a different industry, maybe the tech industry, and say, could we apply this model to what you're doing? Maybe we can get more, the shipyard, those guys are already doing some of that with the OJTs, but maybe we could get them to follow that model. But we've got to build the model and show that it's a duplicatable thing, if that makes sense.
What are the demographics that are making it prohibitive for employers to find the employees to? If we have, I thought we were at close to 8% unemployment. Am I wrong? Has that dropped significantly?
It's been dropping. It might have come back up.
And we have all these jobs available. I'm not understanding, it seems like we have a disconnect if we have people that need jobs and employers that need people.
Yeah, I can answer that. The disconnect is in the skill set that the potential employees have.
I get that, but what skill set are they lacking?
Well, it depends. So you could be looking at the college, the hospital, and if they're needing technical people, if they're needing phlebotomists, or if they're needing an x-ray tech, or if they're needing a doctor, no matter how much I try to get somebody who just graduated from high school, or somebody who's a dislocated logger, no matter how much polish I put on them, they can't do those things.
Could you give me the breakdown, Doctor? Sorry, you read it out loud, and I can't see that part because I'm old. But what is the breakdown of the jobs that are listed?
About 30 jobs, this is today, about 30 jobs were in trades. And that's marine trades. It's everything from electrician to cabinet making to boiler makers to...
These are full-time jobs?
These are all full-time jobs as far as I can tell from just the listings. There were 40 jobs in healthcare. I put certified because these weren't jobs. This isn't, a home health aide. Yep. This is somebody with a certificate who's had to go somewhere and earn it. And then there were sorted trucking companies all looking for drivers.
And we had, I thought you said we had...
That was 70.
How many jobs did you say were open?
We had 436 jobs total on today's list.
70.
It's 70 of these, what I assume are family wage jobs. I focus on the family wage jobs because moving people from one minimum wage job to another minimum wage job isn't getting the job done.
So it looks to me like what we're looking at is an skilled workforce. That's what it's used
Unskilled, unmotivated in some cases, and an atmosphere in the town that says that's okay. That you see it here. We've been talking about this now for quite some time on the various pages, and the number of people who actually showed up. A lot of people, hundreds of likes, but to change this, we have to show up. We have to create an environment where people are literally, they have a young son who's working half-time and living at home, and they just drag him, if necessary, out of the house and get a little motivation. It'll look different ways for different people, but we have to create that environment that we have had in the past. We don't have it right now.
So could I inject one more thing before I get So on Tuesday, we had a special event for the long-term unemployed. These are people who lost their jobs and they are about to exhaust their unemployment benefits. And we had speakers come up from Olympia. I had 3 of the HR people from the different, the Nippon paper was there, Westport was there, I had their HR people there, and we called 20 people the day before who said they would be interested in that, and we called them the day before to remind them. We spent off of a grant, we had lunches for everybody, we paid for the people to come in. Out of the 20 people that we called on Monday, how many do you think showed up on Tuesday?
3.
5.
Why, I'm sorry.
Good question. Why, huh?
No, why
Well,
are
that-
there?
No, because we have to go with the people there were some criteria. Part of it was they were people that were receiving unemployment, and there were some criteria for how we selected the people for that.
And that actually gets to a place. You see, as a community group, we can call everybody. When he's making calls, it's within a program. The program, each individual program he has within his office will have its own structure and rules. He has to go inside, stay inside those bounds. We don't have that. We can take every warm body that we see needing a job and start prompting them.
There's some common threads here from what you just said about those 5 people, what Doc just said about the 100 people that would have shown up here, and what I'm saying about the people who never show up at the docks looking for fishing job. You gotta get these kids to learn about initiative and getting out and going to get
Like
a job.
I said, I agree with you about 95 to 100%, sir. I do. You had, I was just saying, she had a question first.
I did. It's more of a statement. I come from a workforce development background. One of the big disconnects, is kind of answer your question, one of the big disconnects that I've noticed, and I could be wrong, I am really new to the area, is the jobs that are available, that are skilled jobs, there's not local training for them. People have to go away to get their training, and guess what? They go away to a better economy, and then they just don't come back. And so that's, I mean, the trucking training, is there a truck driving school in town?
Yes.
There is.
College,
Is there phlebotomy training?
Through the nursing program at the college.
Is there, we know they have the welding.
They have welding, but cabinet making and other skills are less represented.
But there's some
I've never
skills
seen
that are kind of in between.
Good job with the composites. They do a good job.
We don't have an instructor, that's one of the problems.
Yeah.
We can't get an instructor to do the composites.
There's jobs in between the minimum wage job and these high-paying jobs. For instance,
There's gaps.
there is. For instance, the work that I'm looking for. There's not a whole lot of agencies doing what I do in this area, and 2, it's when the jobs are available, it's so that what they're looking for is so specific that when there are candidates,
You know, maybe there's a lot of candidates and they have a hard time sifting through, but they don't know that they can go.
Let me help you with your resume.
Oh, I developed an entire resume building program actually, so I'm pretty good there. You know, it's the gap between going away to go to school and coming back. Like, what do we do to get them to come back?
That was one of the questions that I have, that our unemployed demographics. The gentleman that's talking about going down to the dogs, and you're referring to kids, are these kids? I was under the impression that...
No, it's not just kids. We have a nice dispersion of people who are unemployed or underemployed in this town.
When I say kids, it's under 40.
So, I'd like to address your issue. So I'm a school board member, I've been there for 15 years.
I'm sorry?
I'm a school board director for 15
Okay.
years. So what I want to tell you is we have 24 credits. Kids have to get 24 credits. It's not they just get 24 credits. They got to get math, science, English, vocab, they get a credit or two. So we've got to get all these requirements done. We've got this high stakes test that they have to take to graduate from high school. They might have to keep doing math and math and math until they pass this high stakes test. This is a state requirement, it's a federal requirement. So it's not, and what you talked about people not coming to work, those same people aren't getting their kids to school.
Right.
So we got truancy issues. So what we found when we started looking about 10 years ago about why kids aren't going to high school, they weren't going to elementary. So that truancy thing is a big issue. So now we have a bill, it's called the PACan bill. We can take parents to court to bring their kids to school. That's where it starts. We have a skills center that's made up of 5 school districts and a college that educates kids up to 21 if they don't have a diploma. We have skill programs there. You know, but I used to be on the EDC board. I got off the EDC board because I couldn't see how we were doing this. But what I'll tell people, kids aren't going to college if they don't get an academic base in high school. We have a lot of kids who are not getting an academic base. We right now have 100 kids are homeless in this community. We got to feed kids. We got to clothe kids. We got to do dental kids. I mean, all these are barriers that kids can't learn if they come to school if they're hungry. So we send 500 bags of food home with families on Fridays. So the poverty rate, I think people don't understand. Why would somebody want to go get a job when they can go get free welfare, they can go get free food, they can go get free stuff? I've got people, I work for a water district, so yes, I had to have a certificate to keep my job. I could work with you and get you some training stuff, and you could work with our kids at Lincoln High School.
Love to.
And this is what we just need to make resource connections. I'm really good about that.
That's the big thing that we've seen just in our first 2 weeks of operation. This program doesn't know really what that program is doing. This program over here, Division of Vocational Rehab, turns out has wads of money. And that they can apply to all kinds of people who are supposedly in need of rehabilitation. Turns out the definition of rehabilitation is very broad. But interagency connection and connection between them and business is a big part of what needs to happen. When we talk about having a job fair, we're actually talking about having an agency fair. Agency and business fair, getting them all together in the same room and saying, okay, it's not like these problems weren't here 10 years ago. How are we doing? And let's find some solutions. And you know, if it was my dad, he'd lock the door and say, you can't leave until you do.
Those are the children we're educating these days.
But you know, we need to have some oomph in this process. And because there are a lot of people who are working very hard, you know, and but somehow we're not getting the job done yet.
So you had a comment.
Well, my question, I think, is why are there not more people here tonight? I I really want to know. Because I've been running PACan, this is our 13th meeting. We've had as many as 70 people at our meetings. And there's 18 of us here tonight. And a handful of them are our speakers. So why is this not a community concern? Is there not enough drama around jobs? Is there not, because a lot of times I feel like the topics that get the most interaction are the ones that are the most controversial, or there's a lot of, you know, throwing of chairs and pulling of hair and slapping each other around. And I just don't feel like this is one of those issues, and that really frustrates me. That frustrates me about this town, because this is a fundamental issue when it comes to picking ourselves up and pulling up our big girl panties and getting to work. And it really is making me angry that there are not enough people here.
I might understand a little bit, because Doc said it. It's really, it's a complex thing you're trying to get to the bottom of. Like, I don't feel like working is complicated.
Right.
A guy walks in my office last week who's a grandpa. He's telling me about his 34-year-old grandson who's a heroin addict, and he's trying to get the guy help, right? And I'm like, he doesn't work anymore because he uses heroin. But in this universe here, it's okay to be a 34-year-old and live with your grandparents and just do nothing. You still have a smartphone, you still drive a car. You exist, and you exist in this world of people. Maybe somebody in your family before you did the same thing. And it's really complicated. I mean, you guys are kind of getting to the essence of some of the whys, but it isn't as simple. That's why you don't have 70 people here, because it's, you know, it's not just this, it's not just that. It's all these kind of intermixed things. Because when in my police car, you know, I'm not on patrol, but I'll encounter people on make a traffic stop. I always ask people just to make a report. So tell me where you work. And I get invariably these really interesting answers, and you know, because you do this. And they look at me like, what? I'm just curious how you work. And I don't do that. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So, well, I get SSI, and I get all these explanations, but they don't work. And so then now I ask the question a lot. I'm interested to know, and I'm not judging. I'm just really interested. You know, when I worked in the National Park Service, everybody I encountered where I worked, when I dealt with them in a law enforcement capacity, everybody. I mean, they were visitors, they were employees, whatever they were, but everybody worked. But here, it's all over the board. But the why part, like sometimes I could walk down the docks, but I don't feel like doing that. I just don't feel like it.
Ma'am, you had a comment?
Well, actually a few things, I was a little scattered, but sadly, whenever you have a community problem, you start with a big group of people who are very enthusiastic, and then what happens, this is the truth, it boils down to a few committed people who are going to work on it. So much as you'd like to see 70 or 100 or 150 people here, I think probably your meeting with 70 is probably going to be your high point, sadly. My question to you is, because you've described 3 events that you put on, very expensive events with hardly showing up. Have you done any follow-up with the people that didn't come? Not in an accusatory way, but trying to find out, gosh, you said you were interested, we'd like to know, you know, what can we do to get you to come, because you didn't come? What else, what did we do wrong?
So the hazmat one, that gentleman had 3 people that contacted him and let them know why they weren't coming. One had a job interview, one went to work doing something different, and one was just sick. And so what he was going to do was he was going to email everybody that didn't show up. And he's coming back in about 6 months. And he's inviting them all to come again. And we'll send out the broadcast emails again, trying to get more folks to do that.
That's not my question.
I have to share the floor with the other speaker. And so I'm going to encourage you to have these conversations on the side at this point.
Or invite them to come to our next jobs meeting.
Absolutely, and the next jobs meeting we have, and work sources there, we're going to start burrowing in and asking, how are you going to help us solve this particular problem?
That sounds like fun.
That would be fantastic, and I would also really like to see some of our city municipal leaders at the meetings. Because I made a phone call for the first jobs meeting to Katie, somebody, and she was the one that really helped get 4 or 5 of them there, and then the next one there weren't any. And I would also like to see them come to these meetings. I have invited, and out of 13 meetings, I've seen one of them here twice. And so I really would like to see more of our municipal leaders here. So that's just publicly, I've stated that now.
So I'm sorry I hijacked your comment.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to introduce Danielle Gaiman. She's here from the library, and she's going to do a presentation on job searching and also about some of their in-house online education.
Hello, my name is Danielle. Mine will be not nearly as long. I promise.
Mine wasn't supposed to
I know, it's a very engaging topic.
Started arguing with you.
I actually grew up in Sequim and then just moved back to the area in the summer to take this job as a librarian. I got my master's at UW in Library and Information Science, and one of my dream jobs was actually to come back to the peninsula and work as a librarian. So for me, it's very interesting to hear this conversation about jobs and attracting people here, and I think kind of trying to engage and promote some sort of like self-motivation to the community. But anyways, so today I had a presentation that we were going to go and walk through the website, but it's probably easier to just kind of give a brief overview of what we do have available that maybe people don't know about that's on the library website. So on our e-resources page, we have a link. We have a few different links. One of them goes to what we call, it's currently titled Resources for Hard Times, but we have a handful of links posted there for job hunting and careers. We have links to Peninsula College, WorkSource, AmeriCorps, Career One Stop. We have different links to library materials that people could check out if they're interested on building their resume, what type of careers you can get with the high school diploma, resume cover letters, interview skills, different keyword searches that you might use in the catalog to find these types of resources. We also have, in partnership with Microsoft, the Washington State Library, the Office of Secretary of State, and the Washington State Legislature. This new program, we got it last year, it was called Microsoft IT Academy, and now it was just retitled last month to Microsoft Imagine Academy. And what it does is, using your library card and creating a Microsoft account, you can access over 400 free online courses and Microsoft resources. So for people that are trying to get started on digital literacy or wanting to strengthen their Microsoft Word, Office, Excel, PowerPoint, I think Visual Studio is on there. There's a wealth of courses that people can sign up and take, and the neat thing about this that we're trying to promote is that it's free. You can do it from any computer once you have registered for an account. So you don't need that Microsoft Office suite on a computer to use it. It's web-based. There are 3 different levels that people can take. There's basic computer literacy, Microsoft Office skills, and then advanced skills for IT professionals. Another neat part of this program is that you can take the courses, and then there are testing centers, and I believe there's typically a fee for those courses, but you can take the completion course in order to get your certificate of completion, saying, you know, I've passed the Learn to Code course and Microsoft has successfully signed off saying that I can do this, etc. And let's see, so that's a big one that we're trying to promote. Another thing, it's really basic, but you know, using your library card, you get free books, access to the internet, you print, scan, fax documents, the different job links. Anybody can get a library card, really, especially if they just need computer access. If they don't have an ID with Clallam County, a current Clallam County address, they can get a limited service card, so they still get access to all of the online materials. They just get 5 items, a limit of 5 items at a time. With a current valid ID, with a current address, then they get a full service card. So they have unlimited checkout materials.
Danielle,
Yeah.
how do people find out about this stuff?
You know, I
I've been
don't
here about
know
that.
because I've actually been doing I had to do some e-resource training to staff earlier this month, and I think unfortunately there's just a lot of good information that's buried on the website. And so we're trying to, it's a part of the plan to revamp the website to make information easier for people to find, because there's a really great local information page that we have on the website that can direct people to different resources around the community. We just put up a tax information page that tells people what tax forms are coming.
You know what I'm hearing? This is not your grandfather's old library.
No, it's definitely not.
That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, a lot of people come to the library to use the internet, so we do have a lot of resources readily available from our website, and that's a great thing about the jobs resources page or databases. You can go to the library website, go to the jobs resources, and then all of that information is there, or a good place to get started is there right from the start, instead of trying to navigate, where do I even begin or whatnot.
Do the kids, do the seniors and juniors know about this?
I think our kids know about it, because they do quite great.
I don't know, but I do know that a lot of people in this community probably have a hard time finding their shoes, let alone this. They're like, oh, well, I don't even
What they also don't know is that you don't have to go to the library to access any of this. All you have to do is have an account, and you can do it. And how fast it is. The contract that I had that brought me here, for the Commerce Department, I was converting manual training of census workers into an online video process. It's going to take about a third of the time and be much more engaging and completely uniform for every one of them. And we're talking here about a YouTube video and a guide, and you can teach people more with that visual medium. You want to teach anything. If you can show them examples right on the screen as you're doing it, it's just that much faster, because our eyes start picking it up. It's not some teacher up at the front of the room. Remember that 300 people in the classroom? But this is our start. What we need to do. Can the library, if we as a community develop other sources of training resources, can the library store them and make them accessible to the people?
Well, I mean, the answer that first comes to mind is
Maybe.
well, they can always, if they're on an easy to find place on your website, then all they would have to do is come into the library and log on, and then go to your website and have that list of resources. So
Is this NOLS.org?
.org, NOLS.org. Yeah, and nearly, you can access all of these from home, which is a great point as well.
Right.
Just tagging on to your Microsoft IT Academy, that's not called that anymore. I used to be one of the proctors for those exams. And folks, those exams, when you get that certification, it means a lot.
It does mean a lot, yeah.
Those are not easy tests. More people fail them than pass them. And when you get those certs, they mean a lot to the employers, because these are the tests that you would take to become Microsoft certified in Excel. And I can guarantee you that if Microsoft is going to send you a certificate that says you know Excel, you're going to really know it. They're very challenging tests. And if your people are encouraged to go through those and go through that, it's a killer program. It really is.
I have another question. What about the over 50, over 60-year-olds who want to go back to work, but, hit that age ceiling that's not there? What's going on in the community for them?
I would say, were you pointing at me?
Yeah, first, you go first and I'll.
So in my head, the biggest thing that prevents somebody in that age demographics from getting a job is the belief that they can't get that job because of their age. I know a 74-year-old lady who's making about $100,000 a year as an executive secretary for one of the biggest private companies in Kitsap. She interviewed competitively for that job, and if somebody shouldn't have got a job, it should have been her, because that's a really high energy, high technology. And so folks that are in our age demographics, because I'm not that far out of it, you know, if you do everything right, most people, age isn't what's the barrier. Most people, most businesses are, can you do the job? Because the average turnover, we turn over a job every 5 years. And so unless my job demands that I'm going to have somebody for 20 years, I'm building a bridge over Tacoma Narrows, I need a project manager who's going to be there from the beginning to the end. I don't care how old you are. I care that you can do the job that I need to have done. That's what recruiters tell me.
I think many folks in that situation should be looking at work sources programs that help, I forget what you call it, the people who help you figure out, well, you did this all of your working career, so you have the skills necessary to do these things. And I think that the first stop should be to go to WorkSource and say exactly what their issue is, and where they've applied, and what resume they're using, and what skills they have, and what their history is, and what they'd like to be doing. And because seniors is definitely on the list. There are a lot of seniors. It's not a matter of just wanting to stay vital, as some do, but others simply have to.
You know, I appreciate all this work you've done, and I appreciate your frustration, Angie. So I would suggest the one thing you might think about doing, every single elected official in this county ran because they wanted to create jobs.
Yeah.
What have they done? Not a lot. Exactly. So I would think that one of the things you need to do is, a nice thing to do would be to plan to go once a month to the county commissioner, to the city council, share your most current numbers, and go, you know what, guys? You told us you wanted to find some jobs. There's jobs out there, and what are you doing? You're spending money in EDC. Do you have expectations that they're going to create training? And I think we should start confronting they're spending taxpayer dollars. Are they really getting a return on their money?
And the frustrating thing to me too is that we're willing to do all of this for free.
Yeah.
You know, and
They need $150,000
I
staff.
just had a 2-hour conversation with Mike Chapman and Mark Mazias today about this issue. And Doc is going to be meeting with them sometime soon. But I did point out the EDC model in Port Townsend. I don't know much about it, but Port Townsend has an EDC that is all volunteer.
Yeah.
And I told Mark today about this group. I told him about 2 other groups I'm with, and an umpteen groups Norman's with. They're all volunteer. Why does the EDC have to have 150 or 200?
Well, the issue with EDC is actually simple. Up until now, there have not been a set of questions that they have to answer every 6 months that are bottom line questions. They produce reports that say we met with X number of businesses, and you don't really know what that means. And the list goes on, and they parade out an array of interim statistics. There are very few statistics on this number of companies moved into Clallam County because of our efforts, and we know this because X. And this number of jobs were created, or this number of jobs were expanded from existing companies. And it's up to the commissioners or whoever else funds it, whether it's private or public, to ask these questions. Foundations do this all the time. If you go to a foundation and you're looking for a grant to run your EDC, they're going to give you a very specific set of questions, and you're going to hit them every quarter, or you're not going to get your quarterly boost.
Well, this is not an EDC bashing. It's
No.
just, what I feel at my core is that I've been here for a long time, and this community has been for ages a woe is me community.
Yeah.
Oh, we used to have fishing, and we used to have logging, and now we have unemployment. So I think probably what we need to do is do a lot more education. There are jobs out there if people would go and get trained for them. And I think your numbers are powerful. So what I hope that maybe you could find some folks, as I say, would go to city councils, county commissioners, and when you do, have a written document that you present and have an extra copy that you hand to the reporter, because then he'll actually put something in his story if he has his own copy of what you say. So I think it's changing perceptions that there are jobs out here. We don't have to be a woe is me place.
Right.
If people would start, I mean, look at all the stuff that's available between going online and going to workforce, and to begin to just challenge the community. Stop saying, woe is us, and let's get our act together.
You gotta
It's
So
not-
I
it's
thank
not
you
woe
for what
is
you've
us.
done.
It is not woe is us, it's, they're taking all this money and not doing anything. And no, but not taking the time to look at what's being done, what's working, what's not working, because it's hard work, you know?
Got to think Nia Bay to Blinn, too. Can't
Can
just
I
think
make an
Pier.
observation?
Yeah.
I'm going to come at this from a different perspective. I'm going to say that people who are chronically unemployed in this town live in a very different culture from the one that you all are describing. I haven't heard, and granted this is my background, so I'm sensitive to this, but I haven't heard anything tonight that says how you're going to address that. I mean, you could go to AA meetings that are held all over this town. You could talk to the unemployed men there who drink too much. You know, you could ask them, why aren't you taking advantage of these resources? Because you're not going to get anywhere with the kids if the parents are standing in their way. So it's kind of like you're singling out certain aspects of the problem, but there's the family, there's the environment, there's the chronically unemployed, people who worked in logging. I mean, I don't know how much you hang out with loggers. I've hung out with a few, they're an interesting bunch. And they're not going to walk into workforce and take advantage of those jobs. Neither are a whole lot of the guys that I know who used to make a living fishing. My experience is with their kids, not with them, but I've dealt with them as resistance to presenting a positive future for their children. So I don't know as if this is all going to go anywhere unless you get them involved and you have to go find them, bring them, or go to AA meetings and talk to them.
First of all, I don't pretend to have the answers to some of these larger problems, but I think part of the answer to that is the reason we need this room full of volunteers. Because we need to start creating an atmosphere that where it becomes uncomfortable to stay in that old way of being, where there's more of us than there are of them, or at least they feel that. And they begin to feel the social pressure to go and get work and look for work again. I don't know how much.
It's going to come from you, though.
No, it's not going to come from me, but it's going to come from the town's atmosphere. It'll come from things like, you know, they'll walk into Safeway and all of a sudden there's a regularly manned table there that's all about jobs and you know, it's sort of a mini little work source where you can sign up or not sign up and classes are announced and stuff, and people will start to have conversations because they'll invite them for coffee. And the atmosphere will begin to change when people begin asking each other again on the street, so how's work going? What you were asking in the car, because they don't do that. And why not? Why are people afraid to ask a question? I grew up in the 50s. That was a regular question. How's work going?
So I think you have to ask them.
What about the churches helping? You know, put it on their campuses too. There's a lot of churches here.
Well, I mean, our churches help in our schools tremendously. They volunteer to do so much stuff, read to kids, all that kind of stuff. But we even have a free lunch program, and they don't sign up because a lot of it has to do with pride, what you talk about. And what I realized when I got on the school board 15 years ago is that you look at, and within our families, you know, you have people who are on welfare. Well, that's just generational generation then. They know no difference. You're going to teach them more difference. We have a lot of kids who are going to college now. They're the first generation to go to college because they've never gone to college. So you have to look at that. You have to look at the culture where they come from too.
And you have to understand there's a feeling of inadequacy and embarrassment that they're not going to
So
show
right.
anybody else. So you have to figure out a way to circumnavigate that.
When I was growing up here, you know, I grew up in mostly the 80s here, and things were more thriving at that time. And then in the early 90s, the mills started to go out, and then one of my best friends, it was the Priest Logging Company, and they folded. And you know, all of these things it was just like a domino effect. And now I'm teaching the kids of my friends, and you see that generational poverty and that kind of just, you know, well, my mom doesn't work, my dad doesn't work, and so I don't know. You know, I mean, it's just that cycle of poverty and generational struggle.
Well, there's a bigger problem here too, and that's being battled out tonight as we speak on MSNBC. It's federal politics, and we're fighting the Trans-Pacific Partnership and all these trade deals. This is a little political, Angie, but that has an impact on what we're trying to do here. And it has to be addressed. There just aren't the jobs available that Doc used to have in the 50s. And there just isn't the tax base anymore, with the upper 1% having 50% of the income, and most of it going untaxed, or a whole lot going untaxed.
Or bringing
So
jobs back, bringing jobs back that are overseas, and
Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
the tax policies there.
Yeah, and so these young kids, and believe me, these are all connected. You look at what's going on at Port Angeles City Council now, and a lot of young people are involved in that effort, and they're just getting their faces slapped. And there's just a lot of discontent in the young people, and so I think it shows up in their willingness to work. So that's a bigger issue, which we probably aren't going to solve tonight.
I'm going to wrap this portion of the meeting up. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming, especially our two guests.
Thank you very much.
Here at the end is exactly why we need a whole lot more volunteers, because that point of view that was just represented about getting out to the people who are lost in a different mindset just went right on by me in my conversations to date. And we need many more points of view, because those points of view will also be the places where the inspiration for solutions come from. So I send you all out with the hopes that you will kick a little tail in order to get people to our next meeting, which will be the 18th, a working session at Common Grounds.
Okay, so the next jobs meeting is going to be a subcommittee meeting, the 18th, February 18th, Common Grounds at what time? 6 o'clock. Our next PACan general meeting is going to be the first Thursday of March here, 6 o'clock. And despite my frustration, I do want to say that I'm really, really pleased with PACan, and I think we've done some amazing things. And I really do want to thank you for being here tonight, because you guys are really the reason that we have been successful. And then we just need to keep going, and I think the jobs, we really do need to prod people. And I'm seeing that more and more, but I really do appreciate each and every one of you.
Angie, I want to just make a comment about how I think Clown Public Eye can help. So you talked about these projects you have on your calendar, and every one of you have a phone in your pocket. Take pictures, take pictures, take pictures. And if you can take videos. You can send them free to me by sending a big file or pick one. You know, with their videos, they'll come to me. I'll put them together. I'm going to put a playlist called PACan up on Clown Public Eye. Everything you do can go in there. So don't hesitate to do that. When you have speakers, things that you think are important, I can save them till I get a group of pictures and then put them together, but we can do this.
Sure.
So do that.
Okay, so pictures of our presenters and our meetings and
anything. Yep, I'll try to be here once a month with you, but
okay. All right, thank Thank you very much, Stephanie. Appreciate it. And then Oxford, I know somebody got sick and things like that, but there is another meeting scheduled. So would Candace, again, you're going to meet again next?
On the 19th.
On the 19th. Okay, so that is the upcoming meeting for Oxford. And then Amy, do you want to give us a little rundown of PAARI and that, and I'm sure you and Brian can kind of tag team?
Sure. So what I understand about PAARI is it was started in Massachusetts by the police chief out there because they have a really big drug problem. Is this kind of what you wanted, that history?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
And so being a great guy and being kind of progressive in his thinking, he realized that you just can't arrest that problem away. And so he created this program where law enforcement is involved in getting people into treatment, which is really neat idea, really progressive. If things kind of continue the way that it sounds like it's going to continue, we'd be like the first state west of the Mississippi that would be a part of it. It's a really big deal, kind of up and coming. There's a lot of information on the internet about it. It's really about building relationships with people in the community, users in the community, and law enforcement, and also law enforcement and treatment providers within the community and likely well outside of this community.
So, and to add to that, we had first meeting we brought, it was actually in Christina's office, and it brought a lot of people who hadn't heard about the idea before, but all were part of the treatment or the law enforcement or the whatever provider community here. Everybody's doing something. So we all introduced ourselves to each other.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the 13th meeting of PACan. It is the 4th of February, and we are focused on some really specific things today, specifically jobs and our economy here in the area. And Doc has put together a really cool agenda for us, so we're looking forward to hearing more about it. So first of all, there are some reminders, and I do want to let you know that if you are on our Facebook page, that I have pinned a calendar up at the top of all of our upcoming events, including the Peabody Creek cleanups, the PAARI meetings, the job meetings will be posted, and upcoming Oxford meetings. So if you have things to add to that calendar, just go ahead and let me know by private messaging me, or you can let Lacey Holland know as well, and she has access to the calendar as well, and she will post things. But it's really great because I need to stay organized, and I constantly forget things, so the calendar is really, really helpful. So with that said, I really don't remember the dates, and so Chris, the next Peabody cleanup is?
Next Saturday, the 13th, 9 a.m., meeting at Olympic Power Sports.
Okay. Olympic Power Sports, just right on Peabody, and in between 2nd and 3rd, right?
Yeah.
In between 2nd and 3rd. Dress warm, wear good shoes, bring gloves, and you guys have garbage grabbers and plastic bags and all of the other necessities. So bring a friend. It's really important to keep that area cleaned up for the sake of our community, and kids go down there, and so that's really important. The other meeting that is coming up is the next PAARI meeting, and that is the police assistance, what is it called? Police assisted
addiction recovery
Initiative.
rehabilitation initiative.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah.
And so that is coming up next week on the 11th, February 11th at 3:45, and the location? Vern Burton. And so that is, anybody is welcome. So that one's coming up. And is there an Oxford meeting coming up?
Yes. So,
Could you tell the camera what Oxford is?
Oxford is a clean and sober living home for individuals and women or men with children to transition back into society from prison, inpatient treatments, or people who just don't have a place to go that want to stay clean and sober and want to change their lives. I did it for the 19th at 5 p.m. at Sunrise Heights Oxford House, which the address is 1117 East 2nd Street. So it's right over there. And we had decided we were working on fundraising, but we had decided to split the committee up into 2 committees. So there's an activities, fundraising, and then there's also an education committee. And so I guess we'll talk a little more about that during our subcommittee meeting this next week, or next 2 weeks.
And we are looking for some additional leaders.
Yes.
Okay. So we do, and just a little bit, because Cloud Public Eye is here, the way that PACan is structured is that we have these overall general meetings, and then we also have what we call our subcommittees. And currently there are 3, maybe going on 4 subcommittees. The first one is Oxford. That is the one that kind of was the initial one. And Oxford, again, you just heard, is living for people that are in recovery. And the second subcommittee that we have is PAARI, and that is the police addiction.
In terms of what our role might be, Terry and I were there to kind of frame out what we've learned about it. And as you said, it's a really brand new concept. And I think it's as much about taking, what you already have and connecting it together so it works. I mean, once a week, I probably encounter somebody in my job, and I'm not a patrol officer, who I might be really interested in handing off to someone if they're willing to do it. So having that resource right there that I'm going to be, like, I'm going to take you right now if you want to, or I'm going to bring somebody to you right now, and we're going to get you going. That's kind of where we were at when we all, when you were there, we all got together and talked about how it would work. A lot of the stuff that Massachusetts Police Departments did, like they have the naloxone because public health doesn't have it. Well, we actually have it. Public health patrol officers, we carry it as well. We're raising awareness of that. An idea that we haven't, something we're not doing, but we'll probably do, is that every 2 weeks or so, sort of town hall open house that the police department hosts there, where they do like a meeting like this, and they invite people who are users, treatment people, whatever, and they talk about the program, they talk about the problem, and it's sort of a live, I guess, education seminar forum that they found also to be very helpful. That exposes people to who they might deal with, and so we're looking at, in terms of making it work here, a couple things that we don't have that the Arlington PD has. Is they've got funding to hire like a social worker, and actually have a go-to person with an academic background in doing that. That will be, like, we talked about a grant that I've found that isn't going to work for us because we don't qualify, and I haven't had time to shop the grant to somebody to hire that kind of person. But I think that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that we don't have. We don't have that person that would be, able to maybe bridge all the pieces together. We don't have it yet, but we're...
Assistance Recovery Initiative, got it. And in essence, what that is that people that are struggling with addiction can really go to the police station or whatever we figure out, because this is all in the beginning stages, turn themselves and their drugs and paraphernalia in and receive treatment without having to deal with the criminal side of things. And so really we're looking at how can we make this doable, and what do we need in order to make this work. So that is something that we're working on. And then the other thing that we are working on right now that you're going to hear a lot about tonight is the jobs that Doc has started, and he started that within the last month or so. So the other committee that we have talked about on and off that we are thinking about, we would be kind of joining with Revitalize Port Angeles on this project, and it would be looking at clean and sober activities for teenagers, and making sure that there are things to do in this town that are exciting and enjoyable and somewhat, I don't know, hi Norma, and activities that really kind of help kids stay on that clean and sober path. So that one is in the works, and I've been in communication with Leslie from Revitalize about how that might be. And the most important thing about that particular subcommittee is that it does need to be led by kids, and it needs to be their ideas and their kind of leadership, and with adults in the background guiding them and helping them figure things out. So that's a little bit about our subcommittees. So with that said, we have had our subcommittees do meet. We meet once a month as a general group, and then our subcommittees meet also on the side when they can and when it's most convenient for their members. So I know that Jobs met twice since our last committee, and PAARI has met once.